All right, great. This is Patrick with the Common Sense Podcast. Uh, Pretty much best place to find that, Common Sense Reporting, obviously. Possibly episode number one. You'll see how this one goes. I've got my good friend Jacob here.
Yo, 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 what up?
Yes, and we're going to talk about pretty much things that have been going on locally, throughout our country, globally, and just pretty much commenting on the overall state of how culture is going right now, the direction it might be going in, possibly ways to turn the tide, all that good stuff. So first off on the menu, not sure if you guys have been aware, we've got the American Healthcare Act has passed its preliminary kind of voting through the House. It's officially 1/3 of the way to becoming a real thing.
Let's go, Senate. Hurry up.
We're almost in there. We gotta hurry up on that one. Basically, Trump running, big old thing. Both him and Ted Cruz talking about repeal, replace, get rid of Obamacare. Not a lot of people were a fan of Obamacare. Now, while this may be Obamacare light in all essence, it is step one in there. And so as a result, this healthcare that we've had as a law to have for the last couple years, as it's only existed in the last couple years, is now going to be lost to about 24 million Americans is the number they like to throw around.
Wait. So you're saying 7.4% of the population is going to lose healthcare?
Potentially, but the real question is how much of those people that legally had to get that are even people that wanted it.
Yeah, because wasn't there something with Obamacare where, like, if you didn't have healthcare, you get fined, so you're paying if you do have healthcare and you're paying if you don't?
Yep. It's all that good stuff.
Good
Nothing.
good quality idea right there.
Yeah, nothing says constitutional quite like that. But I remember when it got announced, you had more people than not just groaning that they had to get that. I personally had tried to find some kind of situation that I could twist to turn into some kind of reason not to have it. That was pretty much my plan. It didn't necessarily work out the best. By the last year, I eventually finally got healthcare. I've never used it. I never really plan on using it.
But you paid for it.
Yeah, well, now I have my own that I get through my company. So I'm excited about that. But it's the whole idea of just getting young, healthy people that don't have a history of ever needing to use this coverage, forcing them to get it to just pay for people that, for whatever reason, can't necessarily get their own. And it's just overall, I don't necessarily see anything in the Constitution that would ever support something like that. It's ridiculous. Like, people like to say things like, I have a right to health care, I have a right to birth control, I have a right to all this stuff. Yes, you do have a right to all that. You have a right to access to it. You have a right to pay for it. I don't care about all these systems or anything like that. You have a right to pay for your own stuff. I'm not saying outlaw any of this kind of care. But it doesn't sound as good when you twist it into, I have a right to take your money to fund my lifestyle. I think that's really what it goes down to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you get all these people that pay for healthcare and never use it, and then, you're just racking up the dough, and then you make, taxpayers have to pay more to help support the insurance, and it's just, yeah.
Exactly. And we already had programs like it. Not one thing in the Constitution says that we have to have health care, and not one thing says the government really can do that. Government workers, for the vast majority of the time, are useless. I don't want them controlling anything in my healthcare. I don't want them doing any of that kind of stuff. And you throw around poor, rare cases, mentioning pre-existing conditions. Yeah, whatever, that's sweet for the people that didn't have that. But when it comes down to it, health insurance is insurance. Healthcare is a completely different thing. But we're using government-sponsored health insurance and calling it healthcare. Insurance is to protect you in the event that something in the unforeseeable future is going to affect you.
Yeah, drop some knowledge, Patrick.
You don't get homeowners insurance when your house is already on fire. And it goes to those free market ideas where, and let's be honest, a free market society is really the only kind of society that you can expect big progress and all that kind of stuff. But it goes down to the idea of why would it be possibly good business sense to just get some random Joe Schmo saying, hey, I'm going through chemo right now. My monthly medical bills are in the thousands. If you could let me pay you maybe about $200 a month for you to pay thousands of dollars a month, that doesn't really go through. And I don't see, that's the problem of trying to force. It's easy to say company A has to do this kind of stuff. Other people in other areas have to do whatever kind of stuff. That's a lot of what kind of stuff liberals are voting for. For instance, like sanctuary cities. Yeah, people don't want to shut down the sanctuary cities. They're or is the narrative that we hear. You know, they're just bastions of good. You don't want to break up a family. You know, all that good stuff. But then you have 65% of people in America don't want to live in a sanctuary city. So it's just a matter of, I would like someone else to take care of this. But if we don't do that, we're all bad people. If you don't feel, you get basically rich people that don't even have to worry about all this kind of stuff. They have their own healthcare. They're over here campaigning, calling people, poor people, that would have to pay to afford this kind of stuff, or small businesses that end up having to lay off employees because they can't afford this kind of stuff. You go after them and call them bad people because they're the ones actually being affected when you don't have to notice a damn thing, honestly. And those are the people that I see sharing all of this pro Obamacare, all that kind of garbage on Facebook. It's people, honestly, either still in college or fresh out of college, never had a job. They've never paid taxes in their life, so they don't understand why this stuff is a problem, why we can't just throw out infinite money at all sorts of things. It's just a matter of, hey, I like birth control. I like having all this kind of sex without having to worry about all that kind of stuff. If I could get that for free, that's what I want. Wait, you want to stop that? Yeah, because it comes from money. These things cost money. We are so much in debt. We can't afford to be having any of the money spent on any of this kind of stuff. And yet you're evil if you don't want to dump a bunch of useless money into care systems not being used by the vast majority of people having to pay for it.
But hey, yeah, pompous ass 23-year-olds that are going to liberal colleges, they know everything. They got everything figured out already. So they can definitely tell you if you're evil or if you're the bad guy or not. They know. They've been around. They're wise.
Of course.
So you gotta listen to them when they're ranting on Facebook and making asses of themselves. You gotta listen to them. They're telling you, if you don't agree with Obamacare, you're a bad person. You should listen to them.
Yeah, and I have been listening to them. I've been listening to them for the past 2 years now. That I'm an evil monster because I am a white male, God's greatest enemy, the white male, born to oppress everything that's not it, and in all these great societies. I don't know about you.
Yeah, screw you and your privilege.
Yeah, definitely. And white privilege, honestly, it's just a way to, honestly, calling out white privilege whenever you're in an argument with someone and you just say, oh, you don't really have a room to comment on because you got all that white privilege. You're not familiar with the actual facts of regardless of quoting statistics or anything like that. It's the equivalent of putting your fingers in your ear, just going la 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 la, I can't hear you. From those cartoons back when we were kids. And regardless, I'm a pompous 23-year-old that goes ranting on Facebook. So, I understand where they're coming from. But, see, that's the problem between some of the people on the very extreme side of the left that you saw ended up going to Ybor for the first like entire week and a half that Trump won, going to the streets at night after leaving the club, talking about fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, whatever, running through it. I know a good amount of people from our high school that did that.
That's not my president.
Not my president. Love that one. Classic, classic, classic. There's a big difference in the rants from those people and the rants from the quote-unquote uneducated. And it's mainly the difference of like facts and statistics, typically an emotional argument. I'm willing to hear your side of the story. I'm willing to hear you out on the other side of the debate. I'm willing to hear all of that kind of stuff, as long as you present a good case. If your case is to why Hillary should be president, and the case is you're racist, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that not electing a random old white woman that, you know, is directly responsible for the reason why there's not a lot of black fathers out there today. I'm not buying that not voting for her makes me a racist because I want to support another white candidate. I don't understand. Hillary does not represent black people. Trump does not represent black people. Trump represents Oompa Loompas and white people.
Isn't it funny how the people that get so offended by racism and say how bad which is bad, but these people that kind of just go off on calling, like they're trigger happy with calling people racist, and racism is a lot of generalization. You see someone from a different race and you just assume that they're the bad stereotypes of that race. Mm-hmm. So they go around calling all these white people racist because they're like Trump, and they're doing the same. They're generalizing. They look at you and say, "Hey, I think you voted for Trump. You're a racist," which is just as bad as me going to look at someone from a different race and just start throwing out racial slurs. Same with white privilege. Yeah, you go and look at me. I'm wearing an Apple Watch right now, and people might say, "Oh, you've had white privilege. You're well off."
It's because you bought it with your whiteness, man.
Yeah, I bought it with my whiteness. No, I work at a call center.
I doubled my credit when I told them I was white, man.
Yeah.
I walked into the bank and I was like, "Hey, is there anything I can do to get this credit card?" And they were like, "You've never had a loan before in your life." No. And I was like, "Hey, but I am pretty white." And they were like, dude, we had you pranked the whole time. We were already writing you a credit card, man. That's why you were able to get that Apple Watch, man.
I don't know. It's just kind of funny how it's not two ways. You can, it's easy to point out and say someone's racist without really digging into it, but you can go ahead and just call them racist. The generalization just kind of gets frustrating.
It's because they've been fed that for so long. Anywhere you turn, all you see is racist. And when it comes down to privilege in call centers, since you mentioned call centers, I work at a call center myself. I'm not going to name the company for obvious reason, but we get heavily graded on certain metrics. These things are like the survey that you get, if you were able to sell them on a certain program, how well you were doing your job during the call, how many calls you took, how fast were the calls, all this kind of stuff. They're objective numbers that we get, and these are graded on calls, not FaceTime or anything like that. So these people, obviously, I'm sure they can eventually figure out that I'm white, but if I'm sick, I may not sound similar or anything like that. But consistently, I've been in the top 3 of the entire building in my department on the floor-wide performance consistently. I don't understand how something like that could be viewed as white privilege. They don't even know the color I am. They don't know anything about me. All they know is they called this company, the company picked up, and you got some random dude on the phone. But that's because I have white privilege, is my guess. But
it's the only explanation that makes any sense.
And the thing is, using white privilege for the like election argument and everything like that, you just don't want to vote liberals because of all your white privilege, you're afraid of losing that and all that kind of stuff. The people that voted for Trump were definitely the non-privileged side every family practically that earned above like 60,000 a year, every like super high earning family, typically the vast majority of the time were voting Democrat at the time. I don't understand the stigma that the Republican Party is still the party for the rich white men only, when the poor people are more likely to go for the Republican Party, while you got everyone in Hollywood, everyone in the companies, all these Fortune 500 people, all practically shilling for Hillary Clinton, making all these, even after the elections, making videos talking about, oh, electors, don't elect Trump. Doesn't sound like he is trying to preserve all this privilege if you've got all these people with more money than time or anything like that. They just spend it all on trying to stop the candidate that, and I'm sure there's possibly someone like Keanu Reeves or something like that has a lot of money and is just a nice person still and just wants to still fight for the average man. But I guarantee you, everyone over in Hollywood, everyone paying for these hundreds of $1,000 speeches over in Wall Street, they're trying to preserve their wealth. They're not trying to get that redistributed back to you. So maybe like you should stop reading things on the internet from headlines and just headlines, seeing Trump hates the poor or something like that, and then just immediately go with it. Getting excessive welfare by voting liberals into the office is not the way, despite what you may have been told, is not the best way to close that gap. I mean, and studies have shown the more we put into that system, the more we see people go on it for longer periods of time and everything like that, and they have less incentives to get off of those kind of systems. And it's not like an inherent thing. It's human nature. It's not me saying, oh, X people are lazy and greedy because they're not able to go through any of this stuff, or rather they keep using this stuff. It's just human nature, regardless of what color you are, regardless of where you're from. If you're having an easier time getting more money, you're gonna go through with that. I mean, yeah, there might be one outlier out of every 500 people talking about, no, I want to make a name for myself, or some kind of sense of pride. But every single animal, every single human is built to be efficient. Even something like a sloth, they're just energy efficient. Yeah, man. And it's ridiculous. And the people that keep bringing up stuff like white privilege, 9 times out of 10 are white privileged people themselves. You ask anyone that's poor or anything like that can't afford like computer access, those people that like had to go to a public library every time they got an online assignment because they don't have internet, they don't have a computer in the house or anything like that. You tell them they're white privileged, they're not gonna know what the fuck white privilege even means. You know? So to even be familiar with the term, you have to have a certain amount of privilege yourself. Because that's not an everyday word. It's a word, it resides on the internet. Maybe if you go to a college, you might see someone yell it out. But for the most part, it is not part of like public speak. And the people that keep bringing up these things, at least in real life, like outside of the internet, are young, white, privileged people themselves. And that's most of the people calling it out against quote-unquote racism too. I just think that's funny, don't you?
Hey man, if you call it out first, then nobody else can say that you're that thing that you're calling out. Like if I go ahead and call you racist, like, oh man, that guy's being racist, no one's gonna call me racist later because I'm faulting you already.
But you're the reverse racist, or whatever it is we're calling it now.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. What it is, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of covering your own ass. Just joining the side that's already immensely popular because, I don't know, breaking first or anything like that. Like, what it is, I think, that's fueling that whole kind of culture war where you've got all these random self-hating white kids that go into college is pretty much they have never, not never, but they rarely get out. And I was telling Trevor about this last night. Is they never really get out. They spend most of their time online, unless they're doing some kind of activism. They certainly weren't the people that explored the wilderness with their friends, that rode bicycles. They certainly weren't that. So, what they do is they stay on social media sites, their Facebook, their Twitter, their Tumblr, and they see people of color in the same privileged situation where they never really have to leave the house. And they're talking about stuff, obvious bullshit where, I'm afraid to leave the house because I fear my life. And unless you're in, the worst part of Chicago, that's obvious bullshit. It is.
A war zone.
I mean, Chirac and all that. But, and then you get these young, impressionable white people that are seeing these articles, and then it's ingrained in their head, oh my God, it's really bad. It is really bad to be black in America. And so then they start thinking, why do they have it so bad? They see it's white people. They're like, well, shit, I've never been outside. Maybe it is white people. And then they start looking up how to be a white ally and all that kind of stuff. And it's just basically hate yourself, don't have any pride, just immediately, go after anyone that's not black, woman, anything like that. You could be walking down, just be white male at the wrong place at the wrong time, wrong rally. And you just get fucking assaulted. Like plenty of those Bernie protests, you'd walk through it, just a white male with like a business coat, just get fucking stalked or punched in the face or filmed or all kind of stuff. For no reason. Or heaven forbid if you wear a Make America Great Again hat. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ruthless.
Social suicide.
Social suicide.
But, it's kind of funny. This is kind of way off topic, but that example is a very good example as to, this all of a sudden came up. I guess this is the first time anybody noticed. It's a really good example of why there's an electoral college for the presidency. You don't want, the whole purpose of it, and newsflash, it's been around since the beginning of the country. So, don't know why people are just now complaining, why is there electoral college after this election? But the whole purpose behind it is that the founding fathers did not want to have one group or culture be able to make the determining factor of the outcome of the election. So, you have that one, white kid that never gets out, and he's just hanging out with all the other, people of color in his area, and, they just happen to be in New York, which is heavily populated, more populated than the rest of the country. And so, they get all together, and they're all on the same side. So now they're outvoting everybody else in the country because of one cultural, area. So that's why you get the electoral college, so that, all the different cultures and all the different parts of the country can still have their equal say.
Exactly. And that furthers the fact that it's not necessarily about race or anything like that, because it's what shapes your ideas more than anything is going to be your environment growing up and all that kind of stuff. What you're exposed to. That's what forms your ideas. So you get more than half of the population living in the two states, like California, New York, all that kind of good stuff. If you get so much unproportional representation of the amount of people living in these countries, they're all going to share...
States, not countries.
I'm sorry, states. Sorry. They're all going to have relatively similar environments. Relatively similar instances shaping their ideas. So, those people over in the coast have no idea what the people in, say, like Arkansas are dealing with, what, Idaho is dealing with. All these states. That doesn't mean just because they have jack shit for population their ideas shouldn't be entirely ignored. So you get all these coast cities where they're perfectly happily relying on highly technological societies, not much, backbone, land growing, farming, and everything like that. Everything's automated and all that kind of stuff. If they were able to push bills just benefiting their lifestyle, not letting farmers use land or whatever because land is a scarce resource now or something like that. Because people over in, say, New York, for the most part, don't have to worry about that. Or at least the most populated areas. That doesn't mean that the average farmer or people like them should be ignored. And the entire country is built on that. We're not just one country, we're also 50 states. And every single aspect of the Constitution was built on that. So you have the House of Representatives, and you have the Senate, and you have the Electoral College. House of Representatives, for the most part, based entirely on population. If your state has a lot of people in it, you will have more representation in the House. However, you got states like Wyoming, barely any people in it. California could fucking eat that state up alive. Their situation is not the same as California's. Their citizens don't have the same living situations as people in California do. Our government shouldn't ignore them, so we have the Senate. Yes, they may have jack shit in the House of Representatives, but they have 2 senators just like every other state in the country. And it's that kind of balance of state government, federal government, that's why we have stuff like the House, the Senate, the Electoral College, state rights issues, all that kind of stuff. All these moral situations should really be handled at like a state level. Like, for instance, gay marriage. I don't care it got passed, it's fine. I'm personally for gay marriage myself, but I think we have a lot more important things to worry about. That should have stayed as a state's issue. There's nothing necessarily, as long as we have the proper federal laws, which we do, tackling discrimination, hate crimes, all that kind of stuff like incorporating religious ceremonies with other cultures, I don't know. I think it has something to do with the majority, the religious majority being Christianity and everything like that, and society reflecting that value for so long. I guarantee we're not going to see Supreme Court make changes to Islam anytime soon or anything like that. Heaven forbid if all of a sudden you see a Supreme Court pass, hey, we think it's offensive that you have a hijab or a burqa on. It makes people uneasy, so we are outlawing that at the federal level. People will be pissed. People would lose their mind. But you can do that to the Christian faith. And I'm not even a Christian myself, but it just seems like we've been so obsessed with a society that we are now, that we have so much emphasis on majority and power being the be-all, end-all. So if you have any kind of a majority, if you have any kind of power or anything like that, you're essentially a punching bag at this point. For instance, the entire premise that's out there of you can't be racist to white people because of the prejudice plus power is racism and everything like that, which is one out of hundreds of definitions, so I still don't understand how that's an argument. But basically what I'm getting at is we've been reaching more and more of a point demonizing the majority, and I feel like the people demonizing them feel that they're in the right. They feel really genuine in what they're doing, but they're reacting entirely based on propaganda pushed by them by the people in charge trying to keep their control over everything. So why do we want open borders? Why is the left pushing stuff like open borders and weaker immigration and everything like that? Wow, it might have something to do with the fact that immigrants are the ones voting Democrats, so it will keep them in power. So what do? Is they realize older people are dying. older people with experience and everything are dying. We've got a new group of voters. So let's cram it down their face that you can just be a better person if you keep us in power. So they'll turn it from, hey, let's kind of keep an eye on illegal immigration. They'll turn that into, oh, you just hate Mexico as a country, don't you? Which is some fucked up stuff. I'll give them that. If it were true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
not Mexicans that people don't like. It's people coming to the country illegally and just start taking, jobs from people who live here and need the jobs. I think that's the majority of what it boils down to.
It's not even the jobs when it comes down to it. So, in order to get a proper social security card, to pay taxes and all that good stuff, you would have to do some kind of identity theft or get a fake one and randomly generated or something like that. Either way, you'd have to break a second federal law. First off being coming here without documentation and all that good stuff. So you're out there not necessarily paying those taxes, living hidden, still using our public services, taking the tax dollar money. And there have been studies all out there. I don't necessarily have them offhand to kind of reference the names and everything, but countless studies showing that each one costs more and more and more and more money just as a country. It's not even necessarily taking a job. I mean, and then you've got the establishment people up there, like company CEOs and everything like that, publicly coming out for Hillary and everything, because they see Donald as such an anti-immigration candidate, anti-illegal immigration candidate, I should say, which honestly is just enforcing laws that we already have. And you see them all endorsing the opposition to keep the as-is situation. And it's not because JCPenney or whatever random company supported. It's not because they're good people or anything like that. See, in a free market society like this, capitalism, companies are all drawn to one main goal, and that's to get money. So when they get all these immigrants in, it's not because they're like, we believe in diversity or anything like that. They believe in cheap labor. They believe in making sure that supply and demand chart keeps moving more and more in their favor. And that's honestly what I feel is the real racism. And the like, how are you going to fight for the fight for 15 at the same time trying to actively lower the wages for everyone? And just so you can seem like a better person because, oh, hey, I'm letting some brown people in the country. Obviously, I'm the better person in this situation. It just doesn't make sense economically. It doesn't make sense in any way you look at it. You know?
Yeah. No, you're right on.
Yeah. And so you had a huge situation for such a long time of all these factors coming together, pretty much converting all these kids into thinking the difference between Democrats and Republicans is the difference between light and dark, good and evil, all that kind of stuff. So then they fully believe this kind of stuff. And despite all of that, the left still lost this election. And with all of that happening, you have all these genuinely scared children out here causing violence, out here destroying property.
Yeah, because it's a great idea that when you're scared of something, you're going to go destroy stuff. It really helps the cause.
Well, of course, but it's not even just about like the property. Like the property, honestly, is the least thing I care about. But now you've got people genuinely brainwashed into forming groups like Antifa. The idea of being against fascism by practicing fascism, to go against all sorts of norms, to fight random people, all that kind of stuff. You have them actively hurting other people that just want to be heard because they're on the quote unquote evil side. They're now Nazis. They're the new Hitler's Youth, and you can just randomly assault them because you heard from Vice, from Now This, whatever, that it's just good to do. And it's ridiculous, and I think because this is the result of some long process of just pure propaganda, be it ever so slight, even the fact that it was slight, not just outright there, the fact that it was streamed constantly for such a long time, I feel like some of the upper level mainstream media executives should definitely take some kind of responsibility for that. You can't just brainwash a population into absolute hysteria and then just kind of idly sit by once that hysteria turns into violence, as it's shown time and time and time again that that's exactly how it's going to go.
Well, I mean, they're making money off of it, so what's the problem, you know?
Yeah,
it's working. People are watching their stations, and they're making tons of money while doing it. So why not promote? Hey, if you're mad about something, go flip a car and go steal from some innocent person's store. Why not? I'll put it on TV. You'll look cool. I'll get money. Everyone wins, right? Yeah. Except for the guys whose car you flipped over and the store that you stole from. They don't really win, but they're not important. The cause that you're flipping stuff for, that's important.
Oh, it is more than important. It's flipping important. But I wish that was the answer, man. But they put out new statistics, and it's kind of Trump skewing them and everything like that. But basically, we've got unemployment supposedly at a 10-year low right now. And there were numbers showing like which sectors gained jobs and everything, and which sector lost jobs. And pretty much you just saw a net gain and everything in terms of jobs created and everything. But media had like negative 7,000 or whatever in terms of job growth. So I think people are getting tired of it, and I think they're honestly losing money at this point. At least some certain stations, because, I mean, I don't know. Me as a listener, we are 5 months after the election. We're over 5 months after the election at this point.
100 days just passed.
Yeah. I don't want to listen to Russia for 5 damn months about how they hacked our election, about how they, ruined democracy. Even though you could see favorability polls and everything like that, you've got the same exact percentage before and after WikiLeaks. If anything damaged her, I'm not even going to blame anything. She was just a terrible candidate. But refusing to accept any of that and looking at any kind of possible introspective things, you just hear Russia this, Russia that, Russia this, Russia that. Which is funny because we just had an election happen in France, where you had Emmanuel, probably mispronouncing this, Macron, and Marine Le Pen over in France, where you had Macron was basically the quote-unquote centralist and everything like that. They were the one that were like pro-European Union, and then Le Pen was, hey, let's get tougher on terrorism, let's get tougher on immigration, let's do our
anti-globalization.
Exactly. And just basically another nationalist movement, which we've seen time and time again lately. We've seen people in Germany are getting pretty fed up with Merkel. There's a rising spark for wanting to have their own nationalist movement. England just had Brexit, or rather the UK just had Brexit. We just elected Trump. Marine Le Pen got a lot farther than most people expected.
Especially from the National Front being widely known as a racist political party that was branded by her father, who she had to take over. So that was the majority of her scrutiny. So a lot of props to make it as far as she did.
Yeah, I like how they mentioned her father in the news and everything. Like right before the election and everything, I saw so many headlines that were basically the father saying, "Oh, my daughter is unfit for office" and everything. She had to pretty much like kind of overthrow her father in the first place. So of course the father's salty. Of course they don't have necessarily the best blood between them. So that's like when the Trump election was going on and they were bringing up Barack Obama's brother hates gay marriage or whatever. Of course, the dude lives in fucking Africa at one point. Of course, he's not necessarily going to be the most happy with gay marriage. Why is this even a story? Obama's not necessarily even a thing. So, but it was just like here, where you had, as you were saying, just the entire rhetoric, the entire election, hateful, 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 hateful. What was she going for? She was saying, hey, terrorism is a problem in Europe, and it is a problem in Europe. They're constantly having to thwart these kind of things. And
they just had another attack in Paris, like days before the final vote.
Exactly, and I don't understand that. Why? What right mind do you have to say, all right, so there's about to be an election, in which case one side wants to blow all of us up and prevent us from being successful. What should we do? Let's prove why we need them in the first place. Like, can you be any dumber? But you had a situation, it was the same cycle, where it was just a country saying, hey, we have a culture, we've had a culture for years, hundreds of years, maybe we should protect this culture. And it's not a racist thing to want to do that. Plenty of black Americans, Asians Americans, Latino Americans, white Americans, we all have the same kind of culture. And you had first-generation immigrants that moved in. Generally, they were the most patriotic people out there. They were over there with their American flags in their lawn, saying, "Oh, God bless America! I love the USA," all that kind of stuff. And then you have it now, when it's going on in France too. You now have it as cool to hate your country, to view all the bad things, why I need to be a white ally, why white people are bad, all these kind of good stuff. And you've got candidates, for instance, like Macron saying France has no culture. That kind of stuff, I think, is an important thing to have in a country. Every time we mention anything about American culture, we immediately get shut down. They bring up something like, oh, America's a melting pot. You know, we don't have a culture. We're a country of immigrants. Okay, but we have... Exactly. And we all still share in the same kind of values and ideas and everything like that. And I don't get the idea, and I'm sure this falls into the power plus prejudice and all that kind of stuff that I was talking about previously, you know, with the majority and everything. I don't know why it's bad to recognize that some cultures in the world are just flat out better than others. Like, you can't... Every time someone talks about how hateful America is, how bad our culture is, and everything like that, and then we bring up the horrible monstrosities in, like, Saudi Arabia or something like that, and they'll just say, oh, you're Islamophobic. Oh, okay, alright, what about this random African country where we still have genocide being practiced and the slave trade is still going on? Oh, you're just racist. They're poor people that need our greatness. They need to come over to America. And if you don't agree with that, you're racist. I don't understand why we can't just sit there and just one day outside of 4th of July just say, hey, American culture is pretty sweet. You know, we have a lot of good stuff going for us.
We have a Starbucks like in every corner. I mean, that's pretty cool. We have video games, high definition TVs.
Exactly. We live in excess. We focus on poverty so much, but we live in excess. Every one of us does, especially on a global scale. And I know the idea is just still constantly improving, like the quality of life and all that kind of good stuff. But if you have a good culture, if your standard of living is in the top, 10th percentile, or not percentile, but top 10% and everything like that, if you're doing pretty good as a country, maybe you should recognize what makes that good.
Yeah, the fact that you're able to go out into a city and publicly say that the newly elected president is not your president and not fear getting in trouble or arrested or killed because of you saying that. I mean, that's pretty awesome, you know? Freedom of speech, it's a pretty neat thing.
Not only that, but like burning the flag and everything. Now, personally, burning the flag, I think is just a dumb thing to do.
Yeah.
But if you do it, I'm not going to arrest you or anything like that. But you go to other countries, a lot of other countries, that is absolute heinous treason to the max. The max.
Yeah, go to North Korea and do that to their flag, or talk down about Kim Jong Un. See how well that works out.
Kim Jong Un, what a fucking idiot! What a fucking idiot! This entire year has not been his year.
Yeah, he's struggling a little
His
bit.
allies are turning on him. I honestly think what we're doing. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of Trump's presidency we just finally dealt with him. North Korea as a whole. I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know. I think I'm hoping, dropping the mother of all bombs in the Middle East, maybe kind of give him a little wake up call.
That was awesome when that dropped.
Yeah.
And I like how people keep bringing up that that was so expensive. They have a certain shelf life. And if they're sitting there not used until they just become useless, that's the biggest waste of money you can possibly do. Just having there to have your dick bigger is the biggest waste of money possible.
Hey, you know what's kind of funny? Is the same people like talking about, oh, we just spent all that money on a bomb that only killed a couple people. It's probably the same people that are saying, war is bad, we shouldn't be killing all these people. You should be happy that we just dropped a huge ass bomb to kill, how many people was it, do you remember?
It was like 36 or something.
Yeah, you should be happy we just spent a very expensive bomb and dropped it to kill only 36 people, because that was clearly more about sending a message
and it wasn't
than
even
killing number of casualties. So you should be happy that we're sending a message to hopefully prevent having to kill more people. And so don't be bitching about the money. Be happy that we're making a statement to try and prevent to try and avoid more war.
Exactly, and it's not even about the casualties. That was just pretty much like a key base of operations for them. Of course, we want to shut that down. That's like, hey, they flew a plane into our Pentagon. That was a pretty big deal. It kind of fucked us up for a good bit. I don't know if you remember that. Destroying all these strategic things is a good way to shake things up. And honestly, it's not even complaining about the bomb being expensive or anything being hypocritical just because the military is helpful. It's they're over here pushing for all these useless social services or anything like that. Like, why are you mad that we're defunding PBS? Oh, we need PBS. How else will Sesame Street teach us? First off, I've never fucking watched Sesame Street in my life. You can figure out not to slap your friends naturally by slapping them and getting the shit beat out of you. You don't need Elmo to teach you that. And second off, every channel out there, every museum out there, should avoid the federal funding altogether. If you can't survive based on viewership, ratings, admission, advertising, all that good stuff, there's honestly, I don't see a point in having here. If you can't survive based on your own merits, stuff like making it a states' rights thing on if you want to fund something like Planned Parenthood, I guarantee if the federal government stopped paying for that, it would survive, no doubt, as like a charity or something like that. And it'd be great, because then if you want those kind of services, you could donate for them instead of forcing people that will never ever use it to pay for stuff like your birth control. That just seems kind of stupid to me. You can't complain about a bomb being expensive, but hey, I would like to increase spending on this, but using these bombs that we've already spent money on and built in Bush's time, I think would probably be a better use of money than worrying about relieving student debt for people with stupid liberal arts degrees like basket weaving. Hey, forget my student debt. I figured to get this degree was an easy A, but why can't I find a job?
I'm an expert politician because of a mass communications degree.
Exactly. Well, we've been going pretty deep on this for about 50 minutes now. I say this would be a pretty solid wrap up. Jacob, thank you for joining me.
Hey, just glad to be here. I had a good time.
Yeah,
That would have
man.
been fun.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. And I will catch you guys next week. Thanks. Have a good one.